It's the same thing with euthanasia for suicide. It's not about autonomy because somebody else is directly involved in causing the person's death. It's not about suicide. It's about euthanasia or assisted suicide. Somebody else is directly involved. It's not about autonomy. We have to make it very clear. It's about giving somebody else the right to cause another person's death. That's what it's about. And it's direct and intentional. It's not unintentional. It's not about unintentional death. Further to that, a lot of people say, oh, well, you know, it's about people and they're nearing death anyway. Well, is it about terminal illness? Is it about those who are nearing death? Well, the fact is, it's actually about people who are in the most difficult time of their life. Right? It's about people who are experiencing very difficult circumstances. They might be experiencing significant disease. They might be feeling lonely and abandoned. Let's understand what happens when we go through significant life-changing experiences that is leading us to a natural end. So people are going through a very difficult, emotional time, and now you add to the equation the option of euthanasia or assisted suicide. Is that about choice when you're going through the most difficult time of your life? If you do not offer support to people in the most difficult time of their life, sometimes they do things that they wouldn't otherwise do, not because they wanted it, not because it was some free choice, but because they were down and because they felt they had no other choice. So we have to understand this is not about autonomy, it's not about choice, it's about how we care for people. It's about how we make a difference in this world. Well, why would somebody want to do this? Now, this has been going on now. I have to explain things to you. In the Netherlands, this started out, euthanasia began with different court decisions. Okay? So euthanasia was actually legalized in the Netherlands in 2002, but it had been happening for many years. And the major court decision started in 1973. And then in 1985, there was a major court decision in the Netherlands which said, if you follow these and these rules, then you can do it, but it was still technically illegal. So in the Netherlands, it's been going on for quite a few years. In Oregon, state of Oregon, this has been legal now. This is suicide since 1998. So we actually have a fair amount of information about this. And a lot of people say, well, if I was in pain and suffering, I would maybe consider this too, you know. But the fact is, why would people be in pain and suffering with the type of things we can do for them today? Well, there are some cases, but let's understand how it's being sold to us. It's being sold to us as an issue of people suffering in pain. But the reality is, with the studies that have been done in the Netherlands and now recently in Oregon, it's not actually about people suffering in pain, because almost nobody asks for it for that reason. Okay? There was a study done, you should know this, came out last year. It was done by Linda Gamzini in Oregon, and she spoke to 58 people who were asking for assisted suicide. So these people were requesting assisted suicide in the state of Oregon. And they were each asked to rate the reason they were asking for this out of 5. So out of the 58 people, how many rated pain as their number one reason for choosing this? Well, nobody did. In fact, nobody rated pain as greater than 2 out of 5. So now I'm saying to you, I'm not saying nobody is suffering in pain. I'm just telling you that that is not the reason people are asking for assisted suicide in Oregon. And in the Netherlands, it's the same thing. That's not why they're asking for it. Well, why are they asking for it then? Well, it's because they feel like a burden on others. They feel like their life has lost value. They want to have control. Control is a big issue. There's some people who really have a real issue with control. They can control their life. They've always had sort of a pride of being able to make decisions for themselves. And now they're nearing death, and they feel they've lost control. So now they want control. So there is a big issue about control. But the biggest reasons were that they felt like a burden on others, and they felt they lost meaning in their life. Now, why do you lose meaning in your life? Because you're alone, and you feel abandoned. That's the most common reason. So what happens? Well, what happens is that somebody's in a situation where they're experiencing a lot of difficulty, and they have lost some mobility often, and people often stop visiting them. They stop being part of a community, and they feel alone and lonely. They feel like they've lost a purpose to living, and they often feel like they don't want to go out and impose themselves on others because they feel like they're a burden on others. So these are the primary reasons for it. Not the only reasons, but they're the primary reasons why people are looking for this. So this is a social question, isn't it? It's a question of how society treats others, how we in society care for people at the most vulnerable time of their life. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about this Bill C-384. Now some of you might think, well, that's a private member's bill. It's true, it's a private member's bill. And most private members' bills don't actually see the light. They don't get passed, right? And I did a little bit of looking at that, and approximately 94% of private members' bills in the end never become law. But that means about 6% do. Okay? That's the first thing. So this is not an issue that we should just say, oh, it's a private member's bill, don't worry about it. Secondly, Francine Lalonde has number 42 in the private member's bill listing. And you're saying, well, what does that mean? Well, how it works in Parliament, in this current Parliament, is every member of Parliament who wanted to present a private member's bill put their name in a hat and their numbers drawn. She's number 42. So that means her bill will be dealt with as the 42nd bill, and now it's in the order of precedence. Now, if you consider, unless there's an election soon, she's going to get her first hour debate on September the 29th. That'll be the first hour debate. So as soon as they return back from summer break, she will get her first hour debate on this bill. Her second hour debate will be sometime in mid to late November, and then it gets voted on at second reading, and it goes to committee. Now, if there's not an election, that means this thing should be voted on and final vote sometime in the spring of next year. And you may say, well, that's a long time off. Well, that's not inconceivable that it'll have time to go to a final vote. Her number's low enough that she should be able to go to a final vote unless she gets defeated at second reading. And it's our goal that she will get defeated at second reading. Now let's understand the bill. This bill, you're going to be told, is about assisted suicide. That's what the media is going to tell you. It's about assisted suicide. It's about euthanasia and assisted suicide. I've got my analysis at the back, and you'll see it, and you can easily pull up the bill on the internet or anywhere. I can send you all the information. It amends Section 222 and Section 241. So it's about euthanasia and assisted suicide. It's very important to understand that. People say, oh, this is about terminal illness. Terminally ill people is what you're going to be told this is about. Well, this is not actually about terminal illness at all. This is available for people who are suffering physical and mental pain or terminally ill. So you don't have to be terminally ill. It's not about people who are nearing death. It's also about people suffering physical or mental pain. Now, how many people know people who suffer mental pain? It's actually not uncommon. If you consider the human condition, people suffering chronic mental pain is not that uncommon. We like to think that it is, or hope that it is, but it isn't. If you're suffering chronic mental pain, you would be allowed to have euthanasia under this bill. Under this bill. Okay? I'm not saying most members of Parliament would think that's a great idea, but I am saying this bill allows for that. Now there's something very important about this. I told you that euthanasia was legalized in the Netherlands by court decisions. Well, in 1995 there was a court decision on the issue of mental pain in the Netherlands, and it was a situation where a psychiatrist had injected a woman who was suffering from long-term depression. She had chronic depression. And so you would think that, well, certainly the courts would have said to that doctor that he had broken the law, but instead they said to him, yes, you did break the law, or the rules, he had broken them, but they said that's okay because she was suffering and suffering and suffering. That's what they had said to her. So in fact, in the Netherlands, they allow euthanasia for people suffering chronic long-term depression, mental pain. What Lalonde is trying to do, and put this in your mind very clearly, when I read this more information to you, she's trying to give us the Netherlands court decisions, which were many, many years of different court decisions. She's trying to give us that in one shot, okay? Because this is not about terminal illness. You could be terminally ill, yes, but it's about physical and mental pain. Now, who else experiences chronic physical pain? Lots of people with disabilities experience long-term chronic physical pain. They're not terminally ill. Often people with disabilities will feel that society treats them in a very negative fashion. They often feel that they're treated like second-class citizens, and often they are alienated from society in general because people aren't comfortable with disability. And yet in this bill, you would, if you experience chronic physical pain, you would be allowed to euthanasia under this bill. Very important to understand. People with disabilities who say that euthanasia and assisted suicide is a direct threat to their life, if you read Bill C-384, they're absolutely right, because that's what this bill would allow.